Hey everyone, I am back for Paint Night Free and Fun Part 2. So, I am just going to wait for some people to pop on. I'm a couple minutes early, but I will go over what we did last night, and then I'll go over the supplies we're going to need for tonight, and then we can jump right in. So, this is what we're painting Part 1 and Part 2 of. We did Part 1 last night. For any of you who are just catching this one, this is Part 2. So you would need to go to Part 1 and do that first. We did the background, so we put on the brown here, and then we put the orange on, the coral, and we did the lines last night with the jar. So that's video 1, and then this is video 2, which I will be posting up as soon as I'm done doing this live video. If you're coming on, say hi. Let me know you're here. And we will start soon. So this is where we're at right now. This is what we've done so far. So tonight we're going to be adding the flowers and the vines. And I think that's really it. The little white lines on the wood. So I'm going to say that this is going to take probably about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, this part. I didn't want to do one video because I was thinking that this paint night would go to almost 3 hours, and I didn't want to keep anyone tied up for 3 hours because I know we all have really busy lives. So once these are reposted though, you can choose to do it all at once if you want. But at least you have options this way. And yeah, so say hi if you're popping on. So for tonight we have our 11 by 14 canvas or wood or media paper, whatever you chose to paint with. And then we have our pine green that we're using, our vivid yellow. We have black, white, and brown. This shade of brown is just kind of a medium brown. Hi, Tammy. And we have a Tutti Frutti pink. And then I have pure pumpkin. Like I said last night, any shade will work. I got a message from a lady saying that she didn't get a chance to get pink, she only got red, which is no problem. When we mixed these two colors together here to get coral, if you had done red, then you would just get more of like a burnt orange. So it would still be very pretty. It would just be a darker tone. So there's no right or wrong when we are doing this. I know right now getting paint is kind of slim. Even I'm having a hard time even trying to get it online. So if you can't get all the colors that I have, we can always make it work. Hi, Amy. How are you tonight? Glad to see you guys back for part 2. And then we have our brushes here. 1/2 inch flat, a small flat, and a detailed brush. This one, I don't think it has an, oh, this is a number 0. So this is a 0 flathead, or pointed head, sorry. I don't think tonight, though, we're going to be using this big one, but... And I have some napkins, and you know what? I did not get a plate. So I will be right back in 1 second. I always forget one thing every time I do a paint night. That's what you guys will know me for. I forgot a plate. I always forget something. I can look it over 1,000 times. Right. All right, I'm back. I set this up an hour ahead of time. I did not procrastinate. I think it's just my old age. I keep forgetting stuff. So I got my plate. I think we're ready to go. I got my tea tonight, Tammy. So I don't know if you're drinking tea tonight or if you want it with alcohol, but I got my tea tonight. And I did a chai latte. So we will jump right in, and we're gonna start off with doing the center of the flowers. So I'm going to point this down so you can see. Hi, Mary. And I'm just going to check if my video is here yet. It was very delayed yesterday. Yeah, it's not up yet what I'm seeing. Okay, so we're going to put this as close as possible. I'm in a different room tonight, so just let me know if you can see that, okay? Okay. And we are going to start with our tiny flathead brush and black. So you can put some black on your paint, on your plate. And you don't have to put a ton. This will spread far. So I just have like a tiny little dot there. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to put, you can put as many flowers as you want. In the picture that I posted online, there was 3 flowers, and I decided to throw in a 4th just because once you get your centers on, you might find there's like a little extra room or just another flower would look good in there. So kind of just go with it. I'm going to start with the 4. If you find you need a 5th or you only want 3, then feel free to do it however you'd like. So I'm just going to dunk the tip of my brush in, just like that. And I'm going to do little circular motions. So when I do this, I'm going to move my whole arm, not just my wrist, because then you'll kind of get ovals. And we're just going to pick our 4 spots we're going to put them. So I have the far side here. This is my left side of my page. If you go up, I just have one circle about, I'd say, 1.5 inches up. And you're making them about the size of quarters. So we're just going to move our whole arm, and we're just going to start in the center and just slowly work our way out till we reach about a size of a quarter. And it doesn't have to be exact. So we got one there. And then the other one is not on the last part, the last board here, but the second one in. It's kind of in the middle and a couple inches down. So I'm going to put the second one there. And then I have one kind of coming off the page a bit. So I do like 3/4 of a circle on this one here. And I do it in the same way, but I just let it fall off the page. So at some point your brush is kind of off the page, but it's the way to get the true circle. And then I have one just down a little bit from this one and closer to the right-hand side line right here. And I'm just going to do another one right there, about 1 inch up from, almost directly across from this one, just a little bit further down. And then that makes our 4 centers. And then we can wash off our brush. We are going to be using this brush again, and it's going to be with yellow, so we're going to want to get all that black out of there really good. Okay. So now we're going to put, I have my Vivid Yellow, so we're going to put some of that on our plate. And we're going to make the petal, this is going to be the first layer to the petals. I'm just trying to see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so some I have 7, some I have 6. Just start off with your first one, and you'll kind of see as you make them all the way around how many will fit. But I usually go for 6. So we're just going to dunk the flathead in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of be making like a teardrop. So how we're going to do that is we're going to put the brush flat down like this against the circle, and we're going to kind of be going out and then back in, and then same with this side, so out and back in, and you're going to get a petal. So I'll show you a little bit closer there, and that's one of them there. So you're going to continue to do this all the way around. You can see how many you can fit, depends on how big you make your petals. But I'm just going to be starting my second one right against the one I already did. And you can always, if you make one, you know, like a little bit smaller, or we're going to be doing so many layers on these ones that you can kind of fix any errors as we go. So don't be too particular about this part. And you can go over this white jar, so just paint right over it. Okay. So there I have my 6 petals. And I'm just going to do that for these 3. This one obviously isn't going to have as many because it's hanging off. So I'm probably going to do about 4 on there. I think that's what would fit comfortably. So you just go around and do that with all of them. And you can do whatever works best for you. If it's more comfortable for you to start in there and then take it from the top and go back down, then you can do that. Or you can start from the bottom and then go again from the bottom to the top. So here you see we have the petals on this one here. And then you have this dot. So you're going to be putting petals on this dot. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to put the petals, so like one starting here, just so they're not, these two wouldn't be running directly into each other if I did one right here. So just kind of around it. And every time I do a petal, I go back into the paint. Okay, so for this last one here, I'm going to start a petal halfway through, and then I'll do 2, and then I'll do another half a petal. So I'll start on this side here of the dot. Hopefully you can see this okay. And just kind of do half a petal there. So I have like that there. And then when you're done doing that, you can fill them all in with yellow paint. So just give them a coat of yellow inside. You can do a thin coat. You don't have to put on too much paint just because we are going to be layering. I do have my blow dryer tonight though, again, if you have to go grab it, just so we can get the layers done a little bit quicker than if we waited for them to dry. But I just don't overload my brush, and then whatever I have on it, I just kind of spread it around so that it's not, there's no creases. Because we're going to want to do a couple coats of the yellow before we put any shading in. So when I put it on, I just have like a little bit on the tip. I don't have anything too crazy. And I just kind of follow the line of the petal. So I start by the center and I just kind of come out. Does anyone have plans for the weekend? I guess it's already Saturday. I don't know where this week went. I keep thinking it's only Friday today for some reason. Tomorrow we're going to go swimming at my husband's stepdad, so the kids are excited about that. We haven't been there yet this year just because of the whole COVID thing, but he's usually not really too much around anyways. He's around his property. He's got a huge property, so we kind of just take over the pool and he does his own thing. Okay, so we're just going to keep filling in these petals. And I just load my brush, and then I start it here, and whatever amount is there, I kind of just swoop this way. So if I have a little bit extra here, then I just take from that. I don't re-put my brush in. Even if you can see the orange through, that's okay. It's better when working with acrylic to put a thin layer, like thin layers of layers, rather than try to cover it all at once, and then it never works. It gets bubbly, and then if you put too much, it'll even crack. So it's better to take your time and do one layer at a time than to try to pile it all on. And we're going to go through with some lighter yellows and some white. And make them pop out. Can everyone hear and see me okay? Just give me a thumbs up or a like if you can see the video okay, hear it okay. Sometimes if I'm in the bedroom, it's a bit further away from the Wi-Fi, so I just want to make sure everybody's hearing me. So if you have any petals overlapping, like I have right here, these two, what I like to do, Mary, you can hear me okay? Okay, good. What I like to do is, whenever something's overlapping and you know there's going to be shading, I don't generally touch the paints together. So what I mean by that is I will paint with a thin line, right? If you can see, it's not touching. There is still the background in there because we're going to shade, and you don't want to lose where that petal is. Now, this is a pretty simple overlay, but sometimes it can get pretty crazy if you're doing like different sorts of paintings. Today, I'll show you later, I did a lady. So I just like to keep that rule of thumb when I do that, because I know I'm going to go in there and shade anyways, so that background's not going to stay showing, and you kind of can just still see what you're doing then. So once you're done doing that, we're going to come back through and we are going to paint another coat of yellow. Now, mine's pretty dry already. I find acrylic paint dries the quickest on this media paper. So depending what you're using, like if you're using a canvas or wood, it'll dry at different speeds. But Feel free to blow dry if you have to before you do a second layer. You're going to want to make sure it's dry before you put on a second coat because it'll just peel the bottom one off and then you'll have kind of like little holes and stuff of paint and not paint and it'll just be kind of messy. So make sure it's pretty dry before you put on a second coat and then you can go ahead and do that. And you're not doing anything too crazy here. You're just doing a second coat. So we're not really going for effect. We're just going for coverage right now. Sunflowers are so pretty. My son last year, his teacher gave him, see, I didn't know there was annual and perennial sunflowers. I thought they were all perennials. So she gave him this little tiny sunflower and it didn't have a flower on it yet. It was like the end of the year gift. So we were so excited to plant it. So we did. And it grew super tall and it got sunflowers on it like I have never really seen before. It didn't really have this dark center that much. And I was like, what kind of sunflower is this? It's really crazy. And so then I messaged her and she said it was an annual. So I was kind of bummed because I'm like, she said she usually gets perennials for the kids, but she couldn't this year, or last year. So I was kind of bummed because I'm like, oh, maybe it'll come back anyways, but it didn't. It just died in the wintertime, so we pulled it out. And I'm like, we got to get some perennial sunflowers now because they're so beautiful. But we never did this year because then COVID hit and everything went crazy. As my Mary says, watch your sleeve, don't get paint on it. Is it close? It definitely wouldn't be the first time being left-handed, that's for sure. And you'll start to see as you do the second coat of yellow that the coverage is a lot better. Like I said last night though, it also depends what kind of paint you're using. I'm using a bit of a cheaper paint, so you might be able to get away with one coat of this, depending on what you're using. And don't worry if you're kind of getting your yellow in the center and you're kind of ruining that circle. We're going to go back in anyways and we're going to kind of define it a bit. So no worries about the center staying exactly like it is. Okay. So then we have our 2 layers. Okay. So I'm just going to give my brush a rinse and we're going to get, we're going to do some mixing, which I guess I really didn't need to wash it for that, but sometimes you'll get like a buildup down here, and then when you're kind of trying to design, when you're designing, it doesn't turn out as good. So once in a while I like to wash my brush, even if I'm using the same color. Okay, so we're going to get some white. We're going to put it on our plate, about the size of a quarter is good. And you're just going to stick a little dot of yellow in there. So if you have some yellow left, you can use that. We are going to be using just yellow too though, so if you want to stick just a little dot in the center, depends on how much yellow you have on your plate, but I'm going to save what I have because it's not that much. And what we want to make is just a very pale yellow. So it looks kind of like a little egg right now. And we're just gonna swirl it around, mix it up. And we're just gonna get a pale yellow out of it. So I'm gonna put just a tiny bit more. You don't really want it to look beige or more to the white. You just want it, you want to actually see that yellow in there, but just be lighter than the original. Okay, so you can see I got it there. So I'm just gonna wipe off the excess paint just on my plate here. And we're still sticking with the smaller 1/2-inch brush. And what we're gonna do is on each petal, we are going to put kind of a highlight here. So we're gonna dunk our brush in to the pale yellow. So it'll be like that. And then we're just gonna pick one side of the flowers. So if you want, let's say the sun coming from this side, then we will shadow all of them or highlight all of them along the same lines. I'm gonna pick this side here, so it's kind of going like that, okay? And then as the sun is facing here, you're gonna start to get them more on this side, okay? So I'll pretend the sun is coming from the right side of my page. If you wanna do the left side, then just do opposite to me. So I'm just gonna start at this petal here, and I'm gonna just kind of do a highlight like this. And then you'll see it's very defined. So we want to tone it down a bit. So I'm going to just wipe off any extra here. I'm going to go back into my original yellow that we just painted 2 coats with, the vivid yellow. And I'm going to go right over this line where the pale yellow meets the vivid yellow. And I'm just going to kind of brush lightly, so that you have the pale yellow kind of blending better in with, rather than there just being that significant line. And you can do that as much as you want. So go back in with some more vivid yellow. And then you can even go back in again to the pale yellow. And you'll see here, I'm going to do another one just so I can show you the difference when it's blended as to when it's not. So that would be the difference. So you can see here, I went back and forth with my color just over that center line, and you'll see how it blended in, but you have that ombre effect still. So you're getting the dark original yellow we had all the way up to the lightest pale yellow. This one here is not blended. So that is, this would be basically more if you're doing like a cartoon effect, then you could do that, because it's not meant to look realistic, but I'm trying to make it look, I mean, I'm not a fine artist, I'm a fun artist, so, I don't want it to be, it's not gonna be amazing, but it's not gonna be a cartoon effect. That's not what I'm going for. So I'm going back over with my yellow, and you want to do this while it's wet. So you don't want it to dry, or you're gonna have a hard time blending the 2 colors. I'm just gonna go back and forth and do that until you have that blended look again. If anybody has any questions, please ask. If you're not sure exactly what's happening, I'll definitely explain it again. Just let me know. So I'm just going back and forth here, and you might have to like move your brush around. So this is not a square flower at the end, so you obviously can't keep the brush like this or you'll paint over. So maneuver your brush, like if you have to angle it a bit to get in there, do whatever you have to do to get in there. And so when I reach down here, the light was coming from there, but now it's going to be kind of falling here on this leaf. So I'm going to do the light on this side here. And just kind of follow it around. Don't forget, if you get too much paint on your brush and it's just not blending well, just take and just do this and then start again with some fresh color. So for me, I'm trying to put a little darker yellow here, but it's just blending too much with the pale. So I just gave my brush a good clean, and then when I go back in, that yellow, the vibrant yellow is going to stick out a lot more. Hi Corinne, hi Sierra, hi Elma. How was everyone tonight? So when our flower's done, it's going to look like that. And that's just, really this is the third layer. So we are going to be doing another layer on top of this with some orange. And we're also going to be adding some white to the center. So there's still more that's going to happen with that. Even though it's starting to look really good, there's still more that's going to happen. So just continue to put your highlights on your flowers. And just take your time. There's no rush. Just let me know if for some reason you're not keeping up. I can slow it down. And sometimes what I like to do too when I'm putting paint on my brush is when you dunk it in, it kind of leaves, like as soon as you lift up, it leaves like a little bubble on the end. So I just kind of like to give it a little tap on the plate, and that just gets rid of the excess. You'll find it just helps not to have that line as much when you're putting paint on. Really when you're painting anything, unless you're doing like a background where you know you're going to be spreading it around, like if there's a big space to get rid of it. If you don't have a big space to get rid of it, then it's good to tap it off a bit. How's everyone doing? Let's see if I can see my live video yet on my laptop. I don't know why it's giving me so much trouble these days. I used to just go on and it would be right there, but now it's... I'm gonna like search for it. I don't see it anywhere. It's weird. So while I'm doing this, I'm using mostly like the flat part of the brush. So you should be, when you're blending, it should be on the flat part. It shouldn't be up like this. It should be down. So this year we dabbled in growing green peppers and tomatoes. We never did, when I was growing up, my dad had an incredibly large garden. We had over an acre of land, so like it was a good sized garden. So I always remember growing up with all fresh vegetables, and we never did them here like since we moved into the house. So we did them just in flower pots this year just to see how it would go, because I was so little when my dad did it. I don't remember all the details, but they're growing pretty good. They got a late start, but I think we planted them kind of late just because we really didn't have access to flowers or vegetables early in the season. But we got about, I don't know, like maybe 20 something tomatoes growing, and our green peppers haven't started yet, so I'm hoping those will start soon, but it's exciting. So next year I think we're gonna actually build like planter boxes and put them in our yard. It's funny because my daughter, she's 4, she goes out every single day. She checks the sizes of the tomatoes, she waters them. They're like her babies. So you have a better green thumb than I do, which isn't really hard to beat. So if you have any flowers overlapping, like I did there, this is the point where I'm just going to take that lighter color and I'm going to come right to the edge, because now you're going to be able to see where this flower starts and this one stops, because we have different shading going on. So now you can fill in that gap. Okay, so that's another layer done. We're gonna go in with some orange after. So when you're ready, grab your orange and we'll put it on the plate. And I'm just gonna wash my brush off again here. The reason we're doing all the petals at once is because for this blending, we kind of want them to be wet still. So if they're not, then we'll just go back into the original color and blend that way. But I'm just gonna get my orange and put a little bit on the plate. And what we're going to do is we're going to go opposite to where we did the light. We're just going to put a tiny bit here on the opposite side. So I'm not going to have a lot of paint on my brush. It's going to be a very small amount, if you can see. And I'm just going to go lightly here. And I'm only going to put like a little line. It doesn't have to be crazy like this, because when we go back over with the yellow, then it's going to blend it in. So I'm just going to do that, grab my yellow, and just kind of blend it up a bit. So this is the vivid yellow we're blending it with. And you're going to get that, where is it? That effect right there on the side of the petal, which looks super pretty. And we're just going to do that all the way along. So you're going to be using even less paint than you did when you were doing the pale yellow. Just a small line. You can even do a couple lines at once. And then go into your vivid yellow and just go right over it. Right over top, and it's going to blend it in. And this, we're pressing really light-handed for this, because you don't want it, because the paint's wet, if you press too hard, you're going to take a chunk of paint off, just because it's not completely dry yet. Mary, yes, you can definitely get 5 minutes to catch up. What I'm going to do is I'll just go along and finish my orange, and then I will slow down till we get to the next step. Just let me know when you're caught up. Just write it in the comments that you're caught up, and we'll continue on. No problem. Sometimes I paint too fast, so you remind me of where you're at, and I will gladly slow down. It's hard to know exactly where everybody is when I can't see you guys, so I definitely like when you tell me to slow down, just because if I was in person with you, I would want you to feel comfortable painting. I wouldn't want you to feel rushed. To me, painting should never feel rushed. It's supposed to be a relaxing, calming experience, so please tell me if you need me to slow down. Okay, there's that. Don't forget to drink. Take a sip. Take a breath. I missed my tea last night, Tammy. You said it, and then I had my water, and I was like, now I wish I had tea, and I can't get up and go make tea because I'm doing a paint party. And nobody's gonna wait for me to make tea. That would not be very good. So I was like, even if I'm not feeling like tea, when I sit down for this paint party, I'm gonna have a tea there beside me, because the second I don't have it and I can't get it, I'm gonna want it. So at the end of this video, I'm going to show you what I have. 2 paint parties planned next. One is going to be parent and kids. So my 4-year-old daughter decided that she wants to come live and do a paint party with me. So I said, okay, what would you like to paint? And she said owls. So I made a painting up, and I'm going to show you at the end of this. So I will have a free parent and me or grandparent and me paint night with their grandkids or their kids, and my daughter will be joining us. So she's 4. It was her idea, so I would suggest, unless your child paints a lot, because I don't know how good she's going to technically do on it. I'll probably have to help her quite a bit, but I would suggest 6 years old and up. It is free, so if you want to try your younger kids, that's no problem. We will be going pretty slow anyways, just because I'm going to have to help her. So we'll all be kind of in the same boat. But I'm going to be doing that one. I don't have a date set yet. And then I have my next virtual paint party painting done for... I don't know when we're doing that either, but I'll be posting them up soon with dates. But the next couple will be a bit earlier because my husband's on days, so I can come earlier and I don't have to wait for the kids to go to bed. So I'll show you closer. You can kind of see here how I have like a defined line. So as soon as I take that yellow and I just swipe right over it, it just blends it in. Same with here. And same with here. Okay, so you just let me know when you're caught up. If everybody's good to keep going, just let me know in the comments. I'm going to just give it a couple minutes. And you can wash out your brush when you're finished. My tea's kind of cold now. That's what happens when you get it ready too early. So what we'll work on next when we're done this is we're going to just try to make those centers a little bit more circular. So we're just going to go over with some black, and then we can work on putting the shadowing into the centers. And then we'll just work on the vines and those white flowers, and that's really basically it. I have my dog here with me. He knows when I get my paint party set up. I've done about, I think, 5 or 6 virtual paint parties now. He knows when I get all my equipment out, he just goes lays on the bed. When I do it in the bedroom. If not, he's on the couch, but he's just chilling out there. So sometimes you'll hear a collar shake or a scratch. Or I have a beagle, so I have to close the blinds because if he sees somebody, he'll be howling through my whole video. Are you okay, Mary, if we continue on? Okay. I'm just going to keep going, but just let me know. I am going to repost this video after if you need to catch up in any way. But I'm just going to take my same brush here with a little bit of black, and I'm just going to go back over my circles. So just kind of make them round again. Okay, so when we're done doing that, we can just wash off our brush. So what we did so far is we just put the 2 coats of yellow on the leaves, And then we just did the highlight with the pale yellow mixed with the vivid yellow. And same thing on the opposite side with orange mixed with the vivid yellow. And then we just made our circles a little bit more circular. We're going to put a little bit of white accent in after, but we're going to let this dry. We're going to let the flowers dry. We're going to work a little bit on the vines, and then we'll go back to the flowers. So we're still going to be using this small flat brush, and we're just going to take, and when we clean it off, because we're going to be using the thin side, we're going to want to just make sure all the bristles are flat and even. So I just kind of take my hand and just move them up. So you'll see, I try to get that as skinny as possible. And we're going to put our green on our plate. And if you have to, we can blow dry this too, but if we just do the steps, opposite steps at a time, I find a lot of times in paintings you won't even have to, because acrylic paint does dry super fast. So I find if I start, let's say this flower, and by the time I get to this flower, this one should almost already be dry. So you can go right ahead and do basically the process over again. I try to pinpoint where I'm going to start to my last step so that I can go back to that step. Same for when I do lettering for when I do my signs. Like if I'm gonna, usually I always start on the right hand side because I'm left-handed and I don't want to dunk my hand in it, but I know that last letter, by the time I get to the first one, it's going to be dry and it's going to be ready for a second coat. So we'll just go back and forth like that. But I'm going to take my flat brush here, and I'm just going to go into the green. So I'm just kind of dabbing it flat like this. And then I'm going to use it straight up to make the stems. So this is where you can get creative, and you can really make the stems going any way you want. I like to make them coming all from the flower into here, but if you want to make like a little squiggly going down, or bring this one up over here instead of down here, really you have a wide range. So for this one here, I'm going to actually take and I'm going to put it over the side here and just have it kind of come down. So you're going to want to miss obviously this here, this lip. If you do go over it, you can always paint back over it with white, so that's not a huge deal. And then, because you would see it through the lid, you're going to kind of come through here, just lightly, hit and miss. And then just bring it in here. And I'm just going to go over it again, just because it's a bit thin. So that will be your first stem. And you're just going to do that for all 4 of them. And if you want, it kind of looks cool in the vase if you have, or the jar, if you have them intertwining. Because you know when you fill your jar up or your vase up at home, they kind of all scramble together down there. And I just hit or miss here because you want to give it the effect that you can see through, but it's not on the outside of it, right? So So from my first painting I did to this one, they're going to look a little different because it's freehand. I like to use it for a guideline, but I never really do 2 paintings exactly the same way. So kind of makes it more interesting. Not unless somebody orders the exact same painting that I do, but So I'm just going to go along. I'm just going to make it a little bit thicker because what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of a shadow in here. So I just want it to look, just to have enough space to have a shadow. Plus, if you ever see sunflower stems, they are actually quite large. But just use your first line as a guide and then just kind of go beside it, and then I'll just thicken it up a bit. Okay. So they'll look like that. And then, so here, for example, like right there, I kind of went a bit thick. I want it to look more like it's inside the jar. So once it dries, I'm just going to go over with a little bit of white and touch up anything like that. Same with here, you know how we did this last night? Well, now it looks like really our flower, the reflections behind the flower stems, and we want it to be in front. So once this is dry, we'll just go over and touch that up a little bit. But, what you can do is just add a little bit of white to your green you had on your plate. And then we can do a little shadow. So we just have that right there, and we'll just mix it in. And really, when you add white to a color, all it's doing is just making it look pale. So any color you have, if you add white to it, you're just basically turning it into a pastel sort of color. If you want to keep the vibrancy, but you want it to be a different color, then you could add some yellow. But I'm just going to make this one just a lighter green tonight. Just a more muted green. So same thing, I'm just going to go in. And I'm just going to go along the side, but I'm not going to cover the whole thing. So just going to pick the side that the sun would come on because this is a highlight. I'm just going to go down there like that. So now you'll have one side highlighted. And to keep the line thin, I am just painting basically straight up. So I don't want to lay my brush flat because you're basically going to get, the width of your brush is going to be your line, right? So when we turn it this way, that's now the width of the line. I'll just give everybody time to catch up. I'm just going to go over my dark green one more time, just because it looks a bit thin. I find for some reason in this brand, the green's thin. Green and pink is really thin. Not sure why, but I'm just going to go over that. So you take your time and catch up with whatever step you're on, and I'm going to do that. Okay, and we can clean off our brush after that. We're going to work on the center of the sunflowers. Okay, so we're going to need just the brown to start. There's going to be about 3 layers on top of the black, just because we want to get these dots here. We kind of need to layer them in order to get the same effect. So we'll start with brown. We're going to kind of work our way up to having darker, then lighter on top. Okay. So I'm still using this brush here. We will actually use the pointed brush. It doesn't get used very often. I don't know, for some reason I like to use the flat brush almost as... I find the detailed brush, it doesn't hold as much paint. I mean, I could go up a size, but I find if you just make this thin, that line right there will hold a lot more paint to do basically the same thing that a pointed brush would do. Now, it's really just up to preference. Also depends on the size of brushes that you have. But I'm going to take, and now that we're going to be doing kind of like up and down motion, I do not want the bristles to be all flat like this. So now I'm just kind of take them and just move them around so that they're not flat. So we kind of have like a separation there. I don't know if you can see that, but we don't really want them flat anymore. So I'm just going to kind of do this. And then we can go into the brown, and we're definitely going to want to just like pat it. We want to have it clumped. We want to be able to see the little dots that we pat on there. So just a light amount. So I just dunked my brush in, and then I just pat it off on the side. And when you put it on your plate, you should be able to see like the individual dots from the bristles you just separated, and then that's when you know that it's perfect. And we're just going to take and go basically on the upper half, and just leave the bottom just black, but we're going to go on the upper half dotting about halfway to 3/4 of the way down. So just dotting like this, just up and down. And you'll see there, I just left the bottom. It's going to be hard to see this layer because black and brown are not that far apart, especially in the camera. But you'll see there, I left the bottom a bit. So that's going to be our first step, layering the center. We're just going to do that to all 4. And you can see by when you kind of move the bristles around so that they're separated, you're going to get those little tiny dots. If you had done what we did when we wanted the straight line and we put all the bristles neatly together, you're going to get a rectangular dot. When you put it down, you're not going to get those individual bristles. So that's kind of another... It's amazing how many ways you can use a flat brush and what techniques you can use with it. It's definitely my favorite brush to use. We can clean off our brushes again. How is everybody for keeping up? Tammy, you're quiet tonight. Are you concentrating? This is going to be your best painting yet. Every time it improves a little bit more and more. I think you've done, Tammy, I think you've done, have you done all, like, what did I do? 4 or 5? 5, 6 virtual paintings? I think you've done them all so far. Yeah, if I look back. I don't know, you did the Canada Day one too, right? Virginia says, I missed last night. That's okay, Virginia. I posted it. So if you want to go back and try it out, the replay's there for you. And then I'm going to replay this the second after I'm done doing it live. So I always say, too, anyone who's doing this with me, send me your pictures. I love to see the finished product. I like to know, are my instructions clear enough for you to be able to understand and to portray this for yourself? So I just like to see, and I also love to see the interpretation, because everybody's interpretation is so different. I think almost every paint party I've done virtually, definitely in person, but virtually, people send me pictures and they all look different. So, oh, Amy says, this is my first time doing an actual class. Very fun. Awesome. That's great. Well, thank you for picking me. I hope that you're having a great time, and I hope my instructions are clear for you. I'm fairly new to doing this virtually, so I've done it for about a year and a half in person. I don't know where you're from, Amy, but I teamed up with Beach House Grill in Kingsville monthly, and I would do them there. And then I also I do them in Windsor with Walkerville Eatery. And where else? I was just starting to do Marco's Pizzeria and Volente's Pasta House. I think I did 2 or 3 months there before COVID hit. So I really miss, I'm hoping, I don't even know what stage that we have to be in for me to get back at this, but I really hope that I can get back to it soon. I am having a great time, though, doing this virtually. It's a little bit harder. I'm a people person, so it's really hard for me not to really see reactions. I understand people are painting, so they can't really be typing the whole time, but that's something that I've been getting a little more used to. And understanding that it's okay to have silence, because I feel like when I'm here by myself, it's so silent. When you're in person, everybody else is talking, so you don't need to be, right? So just, it's a completely different format. Oh, you're from Illinois? Oh my goodness, that's awesome. Cool. I'm reaching out further. That's awesome. They said do lives, go live and you'll reach further, and I was scared, but I did it. Okay, I'm going to continue on now. I hope everybody was able to catch up while I was just blabbing. And we are going to work on the next layer of the centers. So we're just going to put a tiny bit of white into our brown. I actually lived in, I'm from Ontario, Canada, but I actually lived in the States for my grade 12 year in school. I lived in Washington State. I don't know if you know Kamiakin High, but I did that there. And it was so different than the Canadian schooling, because we need 32 credits to graduate, and I think in the States it's 22. So when I got to the States, I had already 20-something credits. So I was like, well, do I have to go to school? I was like, woohoo, I don't have to go to school. But I had to learn American government and American history, and it was great. It was kind of like a campus. So here we have just like a big building and you just walk from classroom to classroom. But there, that specific school, it was like all individual buildings, and it was a very cool experience. So I'm glad I got to do that. But, okay, so we mixed brown and white, and we're just going to get, like I said, again, it's just going to be like a muted brown, kind of like a pastel. And we're going to do the same exact thing, but we're not going to go as far down as we did with the brown. We're going to leave, every time we do a layer, we're going to leave a little bit showing from the bottom. So I'm going to start at the top and just dot. And I'm just going to leave, I'm following that circular pattern. So if you can see there, the brown is showing a bit underneath, and then underneath is a bit of the black, and it's just gonna keep going that way. So there's gonna be one more layer after this. Baricello says, well, thank you for very easy to follow, excellent instructions, description, and pace. First time painting with you, and I love it. You're very good. Thank you. I really appreciate that. We all have self-doubt, so I very much appreciate that comment. Okay, so we're going to continue to do that for all of them. Okay, so we'll let that dry. We'll do the last layer in a bit, but right now we're just going to take our fine tip brush. It gets to have its debut, its moment in the sun here. It's in all its glory. And we're going to put a little bit of white on our plate if you don't have it already. And we're just going to take, we want, I'm going to show you on the one I did, so, finished already. So if you can see here, I put a very thin line of white, just kind of showing where the petals go, they meet. They're going to look like they're going a bit over the center. The center, that is what's going to give the effect of the center being an actual center, not like a flat piece of paper. So if you look at this, it's looking like the flowers are a little bit, the petals are a little bit above the center, and that's what's giving it some depth. So we're going to take our thin brush, we're going to put a little bit of white. We're not going to go too heavy with this, and we're going to be really light-handed. So we have about just the tip. And okay, so I have my petal here, and I'm not going all the way around, just a little bit, so you can see there, I just put a little C. Amy says, wow, Canada, I feel so blessed to be here with you tonight. Same here, Amy. I do too. It's nice to have a connection of some sort. Okay, so we're just going to go around, and we're just going to do that for all of the petals. You want a very thin line here. You don't want it to look overpowering. You just want its presence to be there. I find too, when we're doing this, to keep a steady hand, besides just taking a nice deep breath in, I find if you lay your arm down, just dead weight, and you don't move your arm, just work with your fingers, you're not going to shake, and you're going to be lighter handed, because when you hold your arm up, you have the whole weight of your arm, and you're trying to hold it steady, and then you're stressing and you're shaking. Just keep your arm down. I even like to put my baby finger onto my canvas, and I hold it there, and I just work with these 3 fingers when I'm doing detailed work. Same with lettering. So nothing is moving but these 3 fingers, and you have your dead weight on your canvas, so there's really no chance for shaking, and you have a better control of your pressure. And then that's how you get your thin lines. It takes practice. Don't, if you have not done this before, don't judge yourself. It takes a lot of practice. I find one of the most time-consuming things to learn is the proper pressures for the effect you want to get. So don't be hard on yourself if your lines are thicker tonight. It just takes time. And if you stay till the end, I'm going to show you our next paint night, which I think is, almost one of my favorites so far. It was definitely, I think, my favorite to paint. But I like painting people, and it's a person, so... So if you happen to go over, I'm going to show you my own mistakes and how I fix them, because that's how we learn. So, for example, this petal right here, see how I did the white line and the middle came through? Well, now it just kind of looks like I painted a white line on there. So how I would fix that if you do that is, I'm just going to take a little bit more white paint, and if you just brush down gently over the brown, did I do the right one? Oh, I did the wrong one, sorry. Hold on. I'm upside down here. Sorry, it's over here. Okay, so if you just take and brush down here, it disappears and it looks like it's in there. I think my favorite thing I always say during a paint party is everything's fixable. I'll have like people yelling, Crystal, come over here, I made a mistake. Come over here, come fix this. Everything's fixable. It's just knowing how to fix each issue. Okay. So when that's done, we'll go back to doing our last layer in the center, and then we'll work on our white flowers over here. Oh, you can't see, it's not in the camera. These white flowers here, and then these little white specks, and we'll be done. So just about maybe 15 more minutes. Okay, so what we're going to do is, you should have pale yellow left from when we did it. If you don't, just mix a little bit of vivid yellow and white, or whatever color yellow you have. Unless you already have a pale yellow, then you can just put on your plate. And we're just going to take and do the same exact effect that we did, but we are going to leave a little bit more of, now that light muted brown showing. So I'm just going to go over with the yellow. And I'm just tapping gently up and down, just straight up and down. And then we can put, I think we can put this brush away for tonight. We're going to just be working with our pointed brush after that. Are you asking me a question, Tammy, or are you asking Mary? I don't see where Mary wrote anything, so I'm not sure. Okay, so we're gonna go and into our black with this pointed brush. If you have black out, great. You're gonna want to make sure it's fresh. So if it's got any dryingness to it, you're gonna want to put a little bit more, just because we want to have a very fluid stroke with this. So I'm gonna put a little more on top. Just, I'd rather have a little bit wasted than this effect not work. So. Okay, so we are going to use this brush. Now, I need a thin line, so that's why I'm using this pointed brush. If you have a little bit of a bigger pointed brush, which I do, but I didn't grab it, so I'm just going to use this. I'm going to load this one up. I'm not just going to dunk the tip of it, I'm gonna dunk it right in. Because I'm hoping to get my paint from point A to point B without having to redunk, but we'll see. And I'm just gonna take, and we're going to put, let's do one here. So we're just gonna have it kind of coming out. Where do I want to put it? Let me see, where did I put these? Okay, we'll do one over here first. So I'm just gonna draw a straight line. And you can choose if you want this to be behind or in front of your flower. In my other example, I put it in front, but I'm going to try it behind tonight because I don't think I like it as much in front. And we're just going to do that there. So I just did a thin black line. Now, same thing with a steady hand, how I said you keep your hand down. Because you have to move your whole arm, as long as your paint's not wet, I just drag my whole hand. I don't just try to drag my fingers because you're going to get a squiggly line that doesn't have the right amount of pressure. So I just keep my hand down and then I move my whole arm up because I feel like I have more control that way. So I put one there. I'm going to put another one right coming out of the center here. And I'm running out of paint, but that's okay. We can go back in. I think the most important part of this is to just remember, if you have to go back in and dunk, just try to remember your hand pressure at a certain point, because down here I have a heavier hand pressure, and as I try to wisp out, I'm going to lift off my brush, right? So if I run out of paint halfway through and I need to add more, I'm not going to be heavy-handed like I was down here. I'm going to be a little bit lighter, and I'm just going to continue getting lighter so that we get that point. Okay. And then I'm going to put one just kind of coming off maybe right here. Now work with your flowers however they are. If they're not placed exactly how mine are, then just kind of fill in the space. If you want to do more than 3, I'm just going to do 3 here. But if you want to do more, do more. As you can see in this painting here, my flowers are a bit closer together. They're a bit bigger. So I kind of just fit them in between. Here I have open spaces. So okay. So we're gonna, when you're done doing that, we're going to wash off our brush. And we should have white on our plates already. If we don't, put some on there. And this is where we're going to make our little flowers. So really these are going to be 2 commas meeting. So I'll show you what I mean. So I'm just going to dunk the tip of my brush here like that. And I'm just going to start. Now, the further down, the petals are going to be bigger. And then as we get up to the top, they're going to be a bit smaller. So I'll start here. Hopefully you can see. It's hard because I'm left-handed, but I'm going to do a comma this way, and I'm going to do a comma this way, and I'm just going to fill it in. So you'll see I get just a little tiny filled in petal. And I'm going to do that all the way down. Now for these ones, I have them pretty much right across from each other. In my first one, if you want to go like opposite, like this one's a little bit higher, then I put that one lower. Whatever works best, whatever you think looks best. But I'm going to stick with kind of across from each other. So I'm just doing a comma mark that way, a comma mark that way, meeting them and then filling them in. And I don't start to get too much smaller until I'm about 3/4 of the way to the end.
So I've reached about halfway there. I did one more about the same size. I'm going to start to taper off and make them a bit smaller at this point. And I do one at the very end. And it doesn't have to be connected to your black vine. It's kind of just like hanging out there in midair. I like that look. I don't like everything to be connected. Not for this type of painting anyways. And so we're just going to continue to do that for the rest of them. And generally, every time I go into to do a new flower, I do dunk more paint on my brush. I like to have enough where I don't have to stop in the middle of a flower and get more. And so I'm started right about here to go a little bit smaller for this one because I'm about 3/4 of the way. And then we'll have the one more to do over here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of fix this up here because I want that to look like it's in front of the, kind of like the reflections in front of the vines, not behind. So I'm just going to fix that up real quick with my flat brush. And how we did that last night is I'm just going to go into the white paint and then I'm just going to water it down. So I'm just kind of sticking it in there and then wiping it off on the edge and going back into the water just so it's misty. And then I just did little Z's. little Z's all the way down. And I just kind of went back into the white paint just to get a couple more defined lines rather than just having it foggy. But I like to get the fog in there first. And that's that. So don't forget to, we gotta sign our work. You can choose any color you like. I think I'll do white because it's pretty dark at the bottom there. Or maybe I'll do the pale yellow. That'll look nice. There we go. I'm just double checking just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Oh yeah, I missed the little white lines. Okay, so we're just going to take our pointed brush here into the white. And we're just going to put just little tiny white little lines here and there. Just light-handed. You don't even have to do this. If you like how it looks, just leave it. I just like a little bit of the white accent in. And it's just here and there. It's hit or miss. It doesn't have to be a pattern or anything. Okay, I think that's good. Something I always find with me is like, are you ever finished a painting? Like, I just want to keep touching it, but there's got to be a point where it's done. So I'm going to stop there with that. I'm going to replay this the second it's done. So if you are not 100% finished yet, just you can go back and fast forward to the spot that you're at. But that's the finished product there. I hope everybody had fun. I'm going to show you. I'm just going to lift this up. So I'm going to be doing more virtual paint parties online. Right now they're free. I don't really know when I will start charging or how I will do that yet. Like I said, this is still kind of new to me. So right now I'm just enjoying gaining the experience and giving you guys a fun night out. But I want to show you. So I'm going to be doing a parent or grandparent and me paint night. So we're going to be doing these guys. I try to keep something fairly simple for the kids because I want them to be able to achieve it and feel like they did it. So this is what we're going to do. I don't have a date yet, but I will give you plenty of notice for supplies and to gather up your children or your grandkids and paint with them. So we're going to be doing this. I painted this on one piece of paper and I just put a line here, but this will be two separate. I would encourage you to get two separate canvases. So your child will have one, you'll have one. I just didn't feel the need to paint two separate pictures. So there's that there. And that will be free. And then I'm going to be doing this is going to be, I think, my next paint night. I put this together today. And we are going to be learning how to paint that. So I'm not sure yet. I think I'm going to try to draw out a stencil that will be downloadable for you so that you can just print it out and then we will stencil this on. Because to do this freehand, it's a bit hard to understand, especially if I'm not in person. I find people a bit more difficult. So once we have just a light stencil on there, then we can definitely get all the techniques going and it will be pretty simple to do. But I'm working on how to get, I'm not very tech savvy, so I tried a few things and it didn't work. But I will figure it out how to get this stencil to you on your computer so that you can just print it out and then we can have a fun night. It will be for an 11 by size 14 unless I can figure out how to get it to you where you can make it any size you want. So I'm still learning. I'm in a few groups that have people that are tech savvy, so we'll be doing that next. And I encourage you to share your pictures with me when you're done. I always like to put up like a train of everyone's pictures, just to kind of show what we did and how everybody liked it. Feel free to leave me feedback, like my page, share this video. If you liked it and you want your friends to do it, then share it with them. That way they'll be able to see more of my videos. And yeah, that's it. So have a great night. Thank you so much for joining me for this 2-part paint night. And I will be back on here very soon to do one of those. All right, have a great night, guys.